O God, speak through me and in spite of me. In your holy name, amen. Please be seated. Because of a lot of things that have been happening in the news lately with people being deported, I began to imagine what would it be like if Jesus was interrogated by immigration. So I'm not calling it ICE, I'm calling it HICE, which is Herod's Immigration and Custom Enforcement. Maybe they come in the middle of the night at 3:30 in the morning, like they did to a friend of mine who lives in White Plains. At 3:30 in the morning, my friend heard the doorbell ring. He didn't answer, but as he was still, he could hear that every doorbell in the building was being rung until someone would open the door. Finally, someone did. And just 2 doors down from where my friend lives, the wife opened the door, and the people asked to see her husband. They presented a warrant. They arrested him and took him away. My friend still doesn't know any details. Was he a felon? Was he a bad dude? Whatever he had done, what is known is that crossing borders from Peru to the White Plains was one of his crimes. There is danger in crossing borders. So imagine for a moment that Jesus and his disciples are gathered in a home. Maybe it's Capernaum. And it's a few days after the Transfiguration. There's a knock at the door. We want to see your papyrus. Well, Jesus doesn't have any documents. They say, we've heard rumors that you're not who you say you are. We've heard accounts of how you've crossed borders and how you've broken laws. Now, they don't have a warrant, so they can't arrest him, but they do interrogate him. Where were you born? They say Bethlehem. Really? Were you really born in Bethlehem? Because you're really from Nazareth. So what is it? And I know that shortly after you're born, your parents took you and fled to Egypt. That happened to be around the same time that there was that horrible genocide of young children. It's very suspicious. Were your parents involved in that plot to overthrow the government? You know, there was rumor there was going to be a new king. He was supposed to be born in Bethlehem. It's never verified, you know, to the government. No one ever came back and said they really saw him there. How did your parents know to escape? And then, I know you were still a child, but you moved back to this country. You didn't go to Bethlehem, even though that's where you were born, but you went to Nazareth. Very suspicious. And you grew up there. It seems like you kind of lived under the radar for a long time. What was happening? Were you being trained to infiltrate? Were they just grooming you for something more, to take over our way of life? What were you doing during those years? You're now in your 30s. Nobody ever even heard of you until just recently. But now your name is everywhere. You seem to be on the move. You seem to be planning something. Crossing borders. You go to Judea, then Galilee. You even have gone through Samaria. There's something up with you. You've broken laws. You've upset both religious and political people. I've heard about how you overturned tables in the temple. You healed on the Sabbath. You picked grain on the Sabbath. And you even told someone once they were healed it was okay to carry their mat on the Sabbath. That is against the law. And the worst, you talk about destroying our temple and that you will raise it up. Some crazy talk about the temple being not a building, but your body. We're watching you. You know, we got eyes on you. strange teachings you give about taxes. That's what really confuses me, because you say, give to Caesar what's Caesar's and to God what's God, but I know you're up to something. And the way you heal, you touch lepers, you spit to heal blindness, and you throw whole communities into ruin with your decision to cast out demons and put them into pigs and ruin the economy. And then there's that teaching you give about the poor. The first being last, the last being first. That's crazy. And you allow children and women into your circle. It's not right. There's something up. The HICE agents are getting agitated. Who are you really? Where do you really come from? And at that moment, the disciples are quiet in the room, and they have a little flashback to about a week ago when Jesus asked them the same question, but worded a little differently. He said, "Who do people say that I am?" And they told him what some were saying, and then they said, "But who do you say that I am?" And Peter boldly said he was the Messiah, and that Jesus would talk about saving life, losing life, gaining by letting go. That to follow him would mean a radical walking in his footsteps. And about that same time was when Peter, James, and John, who had just been the three who witnessed the transfiguration, begin to make eye contact with each other. You know when you're in a room and there's that moment of intensity when you and somebody else, you know something. You've seen something that nobody else in the room knows, and you make that knowing look like, remember? And they realize that this question of Jesus' identity and what borders he's crossed is more significant than they had imagined. Because it's not just about Judea and Galilee or Egypt and Samaria. Rather, this is one who crosses cosmic borders. This is the cosmic border crossing Jesus. It's more than Médecins Sans Frontières, Doctors Without Borders. And then there's Nathaniel. Nathaniel was always the guileless one. He's kind of sitting in the back quietly, and he's praying. He's whispering his prayer, a prayer that Jesus had taught him. And maybe he's doing it now because he's fearful for Jesus, what will happen, or fearful for himself. But as he prays, the others join in. And they pray, "Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." And the agents hear, "What are you saying? Stop this. You can't practice that here. What does this mean, the ways of heaven to earth? What are you trying to do? What will you change of the way things are, our culture, our nation? Bringing heaven to earth, bringing spirit to flesh, eternity into the present, the infinite into the finite." Some of the agents are agitated, more agitated. And all they can say is, "We'll be back. We'll send you back to where you belong." But one of the agents had felt like being in Jesus' presence was like a lamp shining in a dark place, like the morning star was rising in his heart. And even though he was scared, because he knew that to be a follower of Jesus would be risky and dangerous, but drawn by something beyond words, the possibility that in the presence of Jesus, he would be fully alive, that the transforming power of Jesus would transform him too. And he knew that in that moment, he wanted to be an agent of love and justice. an agent of this cosmic border-crossing God, bringing the ways of heaven to earth. He decided he would come back. Amen.